Welcome back, dear listeners, to another story that illuminates the values of duty, persistence, and the unwavering dedication to helping others. Today, I bring you a tale set on a rugged coastline where crashing waves meet jagged rocks, and the light of a single beacon has the power to turn despair into hope. It's a story about a lighthouse keeper who, through long and lonely nights, remains steadfast at his post, guiding ships safely through the treacherous waters. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on the light you bring into the world, the ways you help others find their way, and the quiet strength it takes to fulfill a duty that often goes unnoticed. High upon a cliff overlooking the turbulent sea, there stood a lone lighthouse. For generations, this lighthouse had been a beacon of hope for sailors navigating the dangerous coast, its light piercing through the thickest fog and the darkest nights. It had saved countless lives, preventing ships from crashing against the jagged rocks hidden beneath the waves. And at the heart of this lighthouse was its keeper, a man named Elias. Elias had been the lighthouse keeper for many years, having taken over the role from his father, who had taken it over from his father before him. It was a family tradition, a legacy of service that spanned back through the decades. The lighthouse had always been more than just a structure. It was a symbol of safety, of guidance, and of unwavering commitment to a higher duty. To the sailors who sailed those waters, it was a lifeline. To the villagers who lived nearby, it was a sign that no matter how wild the storm, someone was always there, watching over them. Elias lived alone in the small cottage beside the lighthouse. His days were filled with routine tasks, cleaning the lenses of the great lamp, checking the machinery, and maintaining the tower. But it was during the nights that his true work began. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky darkened, Elias would climb the spiraling staircase to the top of the tower. There he would light the beacon and keep watch, his gaze fixed on the endless expanse of the sea. There were many nights when the sea was calm and the sky clear, when the light simply spun in lazy circles, casting its glow on tranquil waters. During these nights, Elias would stand by the window, listening to the soft hum of the machinery and the gentle lapping of the waves against the rocks below. But there were also nights when the storms came, nights when the wind howled like a living creature, rattling the windows and shaking the very walls of the lighthouse. It was on these stormy nights that Elias's vigilance became a matter of life and death. The waves would rise to towering heights, crashing against the cliffs with a force that seemed to shake the earth itself. The sky would turn an inky black, and the rain would lash against the glass like a relentless drumbeat. In these moments, Elias knew that ships out at sea would be struggling to stay afloat, their crews battling fear and uncertainty as they fought to keep their vessels from being dashed to pieces. And so Elias remained at his post. His hands steady, his eyes sharp, he watched the horizon for any sign of distress, faint lights bobbing in the distance, the flicker of a lantern signaling for help. He would adjust the angle of the light, sweep it back and forth, making sure it cut through the storm and reached the sailors who depended on it. He knew that the light was their only guide, the only thing standing between them and disaster. One particularly stormy night, the wind roared with such ferocity that it seemed determined to tear the lighthouse from its very foundation. The rain poured down in torrents, and the waves, swollen and furious, crashed against the rocks, sending sprays of salt water high into the air. It was a night when sensible people stayed huddled indoors, but for Elias, it was just another night on the job. He climbed to the top of the lighthouse, his lantern in hand, and lit the great lamp. As the light flared to life, he felt a sense of calm settle over him. He knew what he had to do. He knew that, out there in the storm, sailors would be searching desperately for his light. He adjusted the lens, ensuring that the beam shone bright and steady, and then he began his watch. Hours passed, and the storm showed no sign of letting up. Elias remained at the window, his eyes scanning the dark, churning sea. He thought of the ships that might be out there, their crews struggling against the wind and waves. He thought of the families waiting for their loved ones to return home, and of the lives that could be lost if the ship strayed too close to the deadly rocks. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, he saw it, a faint, flickering light far out on the water. Squinting through the rain-streaked glass, Elias could just make out the shape of a small fishing boat, its hull rising and falling with the towering waves. The boat was struggling, its lantern swinging wildly as it was tossed about by the storm. Elias felt his heart quicken. He knew that boat. It belonged to a family from the nearby village, a father and his 2 sons, who made their living by fishing these treacherous waters. They had gone out earlier that day, hoping to catch enough to feed their family through the coming winter. But now, caught in the storm, they were in grave danger. Without a moment's hesitation, Elias began signaling with his light. He adjusted the beam, directing it toward the struggling boat, sending out flashes of warning. He knew the waters well, knew that the boat was dangerously close to the rocks. He sent out another flash, and then another, urging them to turn, to steer away from the deadly cliffs. For a few tense moments, it seemed as though the boat hadn't seen his signal. It continued to lurch forward, each wave carrying it closer to the rocks. Elias's pulse pounded in his ears. He leaned forward, willing the boat to see, to turn, to move to safety. And then, finally, he saw it. The boat's lantern swung to the side. The vessel began to turn, its bow cutting through the waves as it fought to change course. Slowly, painfully, it moved away from the rocks, inching its way back towards safer waters. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He kept his light trained on the boat, guiding it through the storm until it was far enough from danger. Only when he saw it disappear into the misty distance, heading back toward the safety of the village harbor, did he allow himself to relax. As the hours wore on and the storm began to abate, Elias continued his watch. He knew there could be other ships out there, other sailors who needed his light to guide them. He stayed at his post until the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the storm clouds breaking apart to reveal a clear, calm sky. It was only then, as the morning sun warmed the lighthouse walls, that Elias finally extinguished the lamp. He descended the spiraling staircase, his legs heavy with exhaustion, but his heart light with relief. He knew that, thanks to his watchful eye, the family on that fishing boat would return home safely. He knew that, once again, the light of the lighthouse had done its duty. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Elias continued his nightly vigil, tending to the light through fair weather and foul. There were many nights when the sea was calm and no ships passed by, nights when the only sound was the distant call of seabirds and the soft lapping of waves. But there were also nights when the storms returned, each one as fierce and unpredictable as the last. On these stormy nights, Elias would climb to the top of the lighthouse and light the beacon, knowing that somewhere out there, sailors might be struggling to find their way. He never wavered in his duty, never let fatigue or fear distract him. He knew that the light was not just a guide, it was a promise that, no matter how dark the night, someone was always watching. Someone was always there, standing guard against the storm. Over the years, the villagers came to regard Elias not just as a lighthouse keeper, but as a guardian of the coast. They knew that because of him, their loved ones could sail with confidence, knowing that they would always have a light to guide them home. Children grew up hearing stories of Elias's unwavering dedication, of the countless lives he had saved simply by doing his duty night after night. But to Elias, it was not about praise or recognition. It was about the duty he had accepted, the promise he had made to himself and to the sea. He knew that his job was not a glamorous one, that his long hours of solitary vigilance were often taken for granted. Few people truly understood what it meant to stand watch through storm and darkness, to face the elements alone, to be the one thing standing between safety and disaster. Yet Elias found fulfillment in his role. He found purpose in every night spent at his post, in every light he sent out across the water. He knew that even if no one ever saw him at work, even if no one ever thanked him, the light was there. And as long as the light was there, it meant that he had made a difference. One day, Long after Elias had grown old and his once strong hands had begun to tremble with age, a storm unlike any other struck the coast. It was a tempest so fierce that the very air seemed to crackle with energy, and the waves rose to monstrous heights. Villagers huddled in their homes, praying for the safety of those caught at sea. But even in the face of such a storm, Elias did not falter. He climbed the winding staircase, lit the lamp, and began his watch. He knew that the storm was dangerous, that it could very well be his last. But he also knew that there would be ships out there searching for the light, desperate for a guide through the chaos. For hours he kept the light burning, signaling tirelessly through the howling wind and blinding rain. He could feel the strain on his old bones, the weariness that threatened to pull him down. But he stayed at his post, his eyes sharp, his heart steady. And then, through the storm, he saw it, a massive ship, its silhouette barely visible through the sheets of rain. It was floundering, its crew struggling to keep it on course. Elias knew that if the ship didn't see his light, if it didn't turn soon, it would be lost to the rocks. With every ounce of strength left in him, Elias adjusted the light, directing it toward the ship. He sent out a series of flashes, desperate to catch the crew's attention. He watched, his breath held, as the ship continued to lurch forward, each wave pushing it closer to disaster. And then, miraculously, the ship's bow swung to the side. It began to turn, its great hull groaning against the force of the storm. Slowly, agonizingly, it moved away from the rocks, guided by Elias's unwavering light. When dawn broke and the storm finally passed, the villagers found Elias slumped beside the great lamp, his eyes closed, his body still. He had given everything he had to keep the light burning, to guide the ship to safety. He had fulfilled his duty right up until the very end. The ship's crew, grateful beyond words, came ashore to pay their respects. They knew that they owed their lives to the lighthouse keeper's watch, to his persistence and dedication. And as they stood before the lighthouse, looking up at the tower where Elias had kept his vigil for so many years, they knew that his light would never truly go out. Elias's legacy lived on in every ship that sailed safely past the rocks, in every sailor who found his way home through the darkness. The villagers took up the mantle, keeping the lighthouse shining bright, each one determined to honor the memory of the man who had dedicated his life to the service of others. Because in the end, the value of duty is not in the recognition, but in the act itself. The light of the lighthouse shone not for praise, but because it was needed. And as long as there were ships at sea, as long as there were storms and darkness, the light would continue to shine, a symbol of hope, persistence, and the unyielding spirit of those who dedicate their lives to guiding others through the storm. Thank you for joining me in this story of the Lighthouse Keeper's Watch. If this tale resonated with you, if it reminded you of the lights you keep burning for others, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's celebrate the quiet heroes who stand watch through the storm and the strength it takes to fulfill a duty that may never be fully seen or understood. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us all of the power of persistence and service.